I started as a teenager, actually, first computer around age 14, and I started by coding. My nights in high school, I hated school. I hated high school, I hated junior high school. I started to leave when I was in university, is what I used to say. But I spent my evenings having fun on my computer, disassembling shareware, inverting, reverse engineering apps, removing protections, coding in assembly, the stuff you do just to have fun and try to move outside of the protection of the computer network at the school. And that was really fun, and it really showed me, hey, there are stuff I can do outside of the classical math schools or French high schools. I hated math. I had a math teacher who told me in junior high school that I haven't reached my maximum level of mathematics and maximum level of schools. I was 14. I hesitated to send her a copy of my PhD in math a few years later. I did not. That would be petty, but I really did hesitate. But why is that important? Because what really mattered was the passion. And for you being there in the middle of August and having sweated through Peter's exam, that showed that you have this passion. And this is the most important part, is keep learning, learn to learn, dig. And yeah, okay, it doesn't make sense to be at 11 p.m. and sneaking up even though your parents told you you had to go to bed because there's school tomorrow, and then you silently power the computer and try to hide the beep when it comes up because you want to code or you want to do this math or you want to, well, that's still all right. That's something you should do, follow your passion. So survive through high school like that and through years of bullying and whatnot. Some of you might know that. When you're smarter at school, it can get you into some trouble. Never hesitate to speak up about that. And then I reached engineering school. So I had the choice at that time. At the final exam that we have in France, we have something called le baccalauréat, which is a big diploma at the end of high school. And I had, I don't know, I was on fire that day. I had surprisingly good grades on that day, which would have opened doors that had been closed until then. I could have gone to the biggest school. I decided not to. I decided to go to a smaller engineering school because there I could follow my passion. It was a school specialized in computer science. And yeah, it was not a big school. It would not open tons of doors. So walking in there, I knew that I would have to, in addition to that school, after that, 5 years later, do something more, let's say, prestigious, complemented with 1 year of a master or something like that, to have the visibility. But I knew walking in this school that I was about to learn not so much just computer professor called Robert Hera, and he was our professor of algorithmics. And I spent so many hours banging at the door of his office and say, hey, I've got a question about this algorithm here, that after a year, he told me, look, there are some competitions of algorithms. There are some competitive programming competitions. This was back in 2001. I did not have internet at home at the time. Very different times. And these are things like, now you have that online. It's called Top Coders. It's called Kaggle. It's called ACM, ICPC. There's tons of them. But at the time, you had to physically be sent by your school to another country to compete. And I was really lucky to be able to go and do that and just, code for fun and for competition. The fun part was really what mattered. And again, what that showed me that, hey, beyond what is currently taught in class, there is all this other stuff. So I use classes as, oh, that's just a table of contents, essentially. It mentions one word in passing. There's something called graph algorithms, and here's a basic one. Okay, let's grab a book and dig into that. As Elena said, now you've got all of that online, so you can completely dig by yourself and go deep and deep and deep, and use your full brain to eat at whatever speed you can eat. And I think that is really amazing. You're not constrained by books anymore. All right, fast forward to the end of this engineering school, realize, oh, these algorithms are really cool, but if I really want to understand them really more deeply, I need to understand more math. So I decided to do a second master's in parallel, this time in mathematics and mathematical statistics. That went well. I mean, that was the year I worked the most of my life because, well, switching from pure computer science to pure math was a bit brutal. But that got me a place into a PhD. And that's where I could put the two parts that I love together, algorithms and mathematics. So theorems and code. And I spent 3 years and a half doing just that. And it was, the actual title was Adaptive Sequential Monte Carlo Methods. Well, that's one thing I learned. That's a very, very specific name. That's one thing I learned in my PhD, that a PhD is really about getting extremely specific on one single tiny topic. And that's what a lot of classical research is. You become the world expert on one tiny topic. And that's fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. Proving theorem that show how algorithms work can be really, really exciting. But at the same time, I was finding it a bit missing. Something was missing. You know, there's all these challenges that we do, that we face as a society. Is there something I can contribute there? You know, after your PhD, you typically go do a couple years of research abroad. So I moved from France to the US and Canada, then the UK, in something called postdoctorate contract, postdoc. And after the end of my second postdoc, that I actually resigned because I didn't like the way research was done there. It felt too much that, oh, you have to prove that this idea worked. And I didn't like that because I want to see if this idea works. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. It's research. When you have to prove that it works because the way you're funded is because you say, oh, I'm going to do that and it's going to work, hey, there's a bit of a problem there. So I resigned and I started doing consulting for pharmaceutical companies, helping them do drug development, vaccine development, and moving them from mathematics from the 50s to mathematics from the 80s. You will see there is often a lag between the mathematical tools that exist and the algorithm that exists and what some industries are doing. And there's a lot of opportunity to say, hey, there's this cool algorithm that just appeared now. How can we fast forward them to this industry here and move this industry to the present? And that's what I was doing when I was contacted by a small startup at the time called DeepMind. You probably heard of them. We were 30 employees at the time. I was a fashion product and researchers like myself. And putting all of these together made a really, really strong mix. That was one thing. The other one was Demis, the CEO, had this view of saying, well, and I'll come back to that because it's important. He said, well, there are tons of problems on Earth. We could try to solve each one in turn, but that would take a very long time. Can we try and build a tool that can help us solve all the problems at once? It's complete science fiction. It's complete dream, but that excites me. That is how you go at big bets and you follow your passion. You're not just going to say, well, no, I can't do it. It's science fiction. I can't do it. Well, it's science fiction. So precisely, let's try it. So that's how I joined DeepMind. My thinking has slightly evolved on the topic, and I'll come back to that. But for the first 2 years there, I did algorithms and mathematics. I did Bayesian neural networks, bringing some uncertainty to neural nets, and teaching neural networks to say when they don't know. Or more precisely to say something and say, well, I believe that I can give you this answer with this much uncertainty. So we go back to the question of knowing what you don't know. And then after 2 years, we got acquired by Google. And there we were 60 persons at the time. Now DeepMind is 1,000 persons. But at the time we were, 2014 when we got acquired. And well, now we had the resources and Elena mentioned business models and marketing. And well, that's something that is really important if you want to be able to get to full scale. Now we had the Google resources. We were able to start trying to apply our AI into healthcare. And because I had worked with pharmaceutical companies in the past, Mustafa, one of the co-founders of DeepMind, told me, hey, we're going to do that. You've talked about doing it for a while. I need a research scientist to help me lead that. So I co-started with him the health research team at DeepMind. And I spent 2 years building the team from, well, 1 person to 10 persons and worked specifically on detecting diseases from the eye directly from 3D imaging of the eye. There's a new type of imaging that exists since 10 years ago that is very cheap. It gives you a scan to 2 millimeter depth behind your eye. And we were teaching an AI to diagnose the different loss of sight that you could get. And that was hand in hand with clinicians. So that's where this gets really important and the mention of design becomes really key. Is that we didn't go in and say, hey, stand back, we're going to solve healthcare with AI. That's not how it works. We work with clinicians. They are the doctors. I mean, yes, I'm a doctor in math. That's a fake doctor. They were the real doctors. And they see patients, and they know how an eye works, and they know how the clinical setting works. So, okay, let's work together and discover together where our tools can help you. And you start with the low-hanging fruit. We started with the eye scan because we know there's a lot of data here. It's 3D imaging. Neural networks are really good at that. So we started with that. But the real cool part is when you start working together really closely, and then you get to this magical moment where, hey, every time I come to your lab, I see the edge of each other, the problems of each other, that you get to these real big solutions. So again, it's not about swooping in with tech and saying, I'm going to save the world with tech. It's about working together. There's a saying that is really, really important, which is to say, technology is not a solution. It is not. It is a magnifier of human behavior and intent. What I mean by that, and these are not my words, they're from Kentaro Toyama. I encourage you to Google him. I can send the references through Elena. What we mean by that is, as a society, and even as humans, we have a whole set of incentives around us that push us to behave in a certain way. Be it our own culture, be it the profit motives, be it the societal structure where we live. There's tons of different ways, tons of different pressures. Essentially, that give you a loss function. For those of you who have looked a bit in machine learning, it's a function that you're going to try to optimize. And with technology, most of the time, you're not changing this function. You're not changing this incentive. You're giving better tools to find the optimal in this incentive. Well, okay, but what if these incentives are wrong? What if when you end up optimizing for something so specific and you optimize so efficiently, you get into a weird behavior where the incentive is really extreme? One example that is often used, if you tell to a machine, hey, you can do paper clips, and your mission is to do as many paper clips as possible. And this machine really optimizes and becomes really good at making paper clips and takes everything in the world and turns it into paper clips and kills humans to get into paper clips. Yeah, that's not working. Same thing if you say, I want to maximize happiness. Simple solution. Hook everyone onto drugs, put them like in the Matrix in a pod, and everyone is happy. That's not quite what we wanted. Or say, I want to engage people to click on my advertisement. Ooh. Well, hold on. What am I advertising now? Oh, I'm advertising news. And okay, I'm putting articles that are getting the most clicks. And my algorithm is getting algorithm that give you the most clicks. No clicks anymore. It's the society, the fabric of society that we are unraveling. So that is where technology is not a solution. Well, then what do we do? That comes back to partnering with the domain experts. That is why Elena, in the challenges, is sending you towards the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Look, I'm a scientist. I'm very good at math, sure, but I know what I do not know. I have opinions of the world should work, but so does everyone at the pub downstairs. And they have more opinions the more they drink. Okay, so do I. But I know that I don't know. However, there are people who have spent decades, their entire career, thinking about these problems. You find them, indeed, some of them at the United Nations, some in certain parts of governments, some in non-for-profits, in non-governmental organizations like Amnesty International, like Human Rights Watch, like Greenpeace. And they have spent their years fighting. And they know some of the stuff that doesn't work. And they know some of the stuff that does work. When you partner with them, you put your tech skills with their knowledge of the different dangers in which society's incentives can get us. And with their knowledge of, well, if you want to get a change on something here, you need to make a massive report in this way that will attract journalists that will then take this company to pay notice. I mean, Freddie will tell you more when he speaks about, I think you're going to talk about Troll Patrol? Do you mind if I spoil the ending? So this is a project we did with Amnesty, and again, Freddie will tell you everything, but when we came out, together with Amnesty and Element, we released a big report about the abuse against women on Twitter, especially women politicians and journalists in the US and the UK. We released that on the 18th of December last year. Overnight, Twitter stock plunged 13%. Over the next 3 days, Twitter stock kept plunging, we cost Twitter $2.5 billion. Now, I'm not set out here to say, hey, let's destroy Twitter. No. I'm saying, hey, we took this problem, and with domain experts, and with our tech, we showed the scale of the problem, and we put it in a way that made it so that, oh, people suddenly sold their Twitter stock. And that is a unit of measurement. The share price is a unit of measurement that the big directors at Twitter really understand, because that's what their company is made for. It's a for-profit company. They need to generate money. And suddenly, well, they're generating less money that way. Oops. So that caused them to take notice. And that is one way where Amnesty knows, okay, when you do that, you get the attention of these companies, and now they become more careful about what they're doing. They're engaging. The CEO of Twitter spoke with the Director General of Amnesty. That's the kind of impact you can start to have. And there's many such examples. Now, okay, I was in healthcare at DeepMind at the time working with clinicians, and that was great. But I realized, hey, I love what I'm doing here. And DeepMind is a fantastic, well, it's a place with fantastic people in it. But is this the best I can do? How can I have more impact? And within DeepMind, I felt that I could not necessarily, I talked to you about how do you use your time. And I felt I could not use it exactly in the way I wanted, which is fine. I mean, it's a company's got to have its direction, and their direction is solve artificial general intelligence, however long that may take. Good. But I wanted to go back to the different problem that we have now and see how I could kitchen. Turns out they need people who have more regular timetables than I had. Okay, well, I learned that. Then I met Amnesty International in a meetup. So that shows you the importance of going out, going to meetups, and speaking, even if you think you don't belong. I'll come back to that in the notion of imposter syndrome at the end, because that's one thing that is really, really important, especially at your age, but throughout your career. And so I bumped into Amnesty International at a meetup, and they were working on a project to find destroyed villages in Darfur. How many of you have heard about the conflict in Darfur? Quick show of hands. Okay, so essentially it's been going on for 15 years. Some parts of the military are going and destroying villages in a part of Sudan. And they go in, they burn the houses, they rape the women, they scatter the population to the wind, and they've closed the border, so there was no way to know what's going on. And Amnesty and many other NGOs have been working hard on that and trying to get evidence. And I helped them using satellite imagery and finding automatically with an AI where the destroyed villages were. And that's a first use of AI by Amnesty on trying to find proof of human rights abuses, even beyond borders, even beyond places where they cannot know otherwise what is happening. And it's combining the quantitative measures with math and with, okay, here are X many villages, with the more qualitative research where they interview survivors that have been able to flee the country. And it's a combination of these two that is really powerful. So I started doing that with a PhD student, and again, when it comes to following your passion, he was a PhD student at University College London, and on his night and weekends, instead of writing on his dissertation, which in theory he should have been doing, well, he spent his time helping on this problem and trying his algorithms on this problem. And we got some really cool results, some things that really worked. I always remember his face when, and that's where it ties back to the notion of design. When we moved from the algorithm that told us we have it right 95% of the time, to actually putting it into a full web interface with a web map, a bit like Google Maps, where you can zoom in, see the villages that are destroyed, see the color coding of the regions that are being destroyed, and those that are safe, and etc. It's the same thing. I mean, the same algorithm, it's the same accuracy. But when you put it together in a map like that, I always remember, wow, we did something that really works. And that shows the value of going beyond the algorithm, which I love to do, but actually thinking about how can I make the output of this algorithm, and how can I actually even design this algorithm in a way that is useful for the end user, the human rights researchers who's going to use that, the lawyer who's going to go and use that as a proof in a trial later on. How do you think about that from the get-go? And so we were two tech and two persons at Amnesty, so just four of us, and I thought, well, we're getting these cool results here, but how bigger could we be if we had a full team? If it were not just one project, if we had the way to turn that into a bigger platform, say a platform that monitors human rights at scale all over the world. Now that is getting somewhere. Now that is, oh wow, that's a dream, but I'd really like to work on that. And that could be really powerful. And the domain experts, human rights researchers, are telling me that this would be very powerful. So I set out to go to a startup incubator to learn about business models, to learn about marketing, about business-to-business, B2B negotiations, about all this kind of stuff. You know, I come from a lab. I come from coding. It's been quite a long path. But there I realized, well, actually doing a typical startup is not going to work for that. Typical startup, you're paid, you have enough capital to work for 1 year, and you need to focus on product. And at this stage, we're not mature enough. So what else can I do? I went to the United Nations. There was an AI for Good summit there. So one trick here. Why did I go there? How did I get there? Because I was ballsy and actually pushed by my incubator more than I would be comfortable doing to email some people I had met once in a conference a couple years ago. And I thought, yeah, I'll email them. They're at UNICEF, the child care agency of the United Nations. But yeah, I'll email them once I have something to show them. And the startup incubator told me, no, bollocks. Just email them now. Learn from them now. Email them, speak, talk about your dreams. So I did that, and I felt really uncomfortable about it. But then they were like, well, you know what? You should come to the UN. In June, we have this AI for Good summit. Come and meet people. So I did. And there I met Yoshua Bengio, who's a big guy in deep learning, and one of the 3 godfathers of deep learning. Sometimes it's been called that. And he was like, well, he had just started this Element AI startup. And I was like, oh, hold on. I mean, I know why I'm here, but you've just started a startup and you are in an AI for Good place. But your startup is a company and it's doing products for industry. What are you doing here? And well, essentially, they wanted from the get-go to have a for good component. And we're thinking that there is a role for companies beyond the current purely for-profit model. It's a big bet. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, we have had to explain it to our investors a lot. We have had, we're trying something there. And it might not work, but at least we'll have learned tons of stuff on the way. And it will feed the next stuff we can do. Or it might work. Fantastic. So it's a company that does business services for insurance, for asset management, for retail, and marketing, but which also said, well, from the get-go, let's have this component. And so Yoshua had the values and the desire and the resources. I had the values and the desire and the ideas. So we decided it was quite a natural fit. Let's, do it together. So I joined Element and started the London office and the AI for Good team. That was 1.5 years ago. And since then, we've been partnering with Amnesty International on Troll Patrol, with Human Rights Watch. We've been working with the European Space Agency. Freddie can tell you more about that too. Don't hesitate to ask him what he's been up to for the last 18 months. It's pretty cool. And yes, I'm spending much fewer time coding and much fewer time coding than the team would like me to do, and much more time trying to negotiate deals and saying, hey, you've got this data and they've got this knowledge and we've got the algorithm. Can we put them together somehow? And trying to make these things happen. Now, I said I would mention imposter syndrome. Am I a businessman? No. I'm a scientist, and even, at DeepMind, I've seen scientists who are way better than me. And we're getting hundreds of thousands of citations. I've got a few thousands, but, not that caliber. And do I feel that I belong? Or do I feel that, hey, that's something I should be doing? When I go on stage speaking at the UN, I'm just stressing out, should I wear a suit? Should I not wear a suit? What should I say? I mean, I'm stressed out. And there is deeply something that you might recognize thinking, well, hold on. I'm only there because I've been lucky, because, they read the test, but I did this part wrong and maybe they didn't see it, or I can't believe, it must be a mistake, or, am I smart enough to be here? Or let me give you an example. When I moved for the first time out of France to this postdoctoral lab in the US, there were 7 postdocs from all over the world coming together on this topic. And I checked the webpage of one of the other postdocs. Her name is Joanna. She's now a very good friend since 10 years. She now is a professor at University College London. And I looked at her website and I freaked out. She's from Cambridge and she worked on Monte Carlo methods. And oh my God, she's going to know all of that. And she's from this fantastic university. And I have not yet finished my PhD. That was a dirty secret. I went into this postdoc, but I had not finished writing my dissertation. So I was completely freaking out. And indeed, some matter, and nice, you don't show it, you keep it by yourself. And you struggle to finish your dissertation in the evenings, and you realize, oh, hold on, no, that's not going to work, and then I need to go back to France for 2 months, and then go back to the postdoc, and you get super stressed. And then a few months later, we were discussing with Joanna, who had become a friend in the meantime, and she told me that at the very same time I was doing that, she was checking my website and freaking out. My God, he's from France. He's going to know a lot of math. Oh, and he did his PhD with Moulin. Same fears. Yes, there might be a few assholes who think they know everything. Okay. And they might be super boasting and be like, yeah, you know, I'm the cool kid on the block. And some of them actually might believe that, and some might just be putting that as a facade. But it's when you start to be transparent and you start to realize that, hold on, all the other persons here are having the same fears and having the same doubts, that this starts to click in. And why is that important? That's important for you individually as you grow. Remember, if you feel that you are the person who belongs the least in the room, that probably means you are one of the smartest, because it takes a lot of smart to realize, oh, hold on, I do not know tons of stuff. The people who believe they know a lot of stuff are often wrong. That's the first thing. The second thing is it matters for the problems we try to tackle as a society. Because a lot of us are completely scared about climate change. A lot of us are completely scared about human rights abuse, about the murders that are happening, about the dictatorship that is happening. Polarization of politics, the hate that is growing. But a lot of us, most of us, are just thinking, well, no, I can't, I don't have what it takes to change that. I'm not a big minister, I'm not a big president, I'm not at the UN, I'm just me, and you know, I need to pay my rent and send my kids to school, or I need to find a flat, or I need to get a degree, or, well, actually, that's what it takes. Precisely, people all over the world realizing, hey, there is more. With all these powerful tools that we are building, or that others are building, there is more to be done than just ads or finance. There's all these problems that we can face. And this is through actually starting from the get-go with your passion and following this passion and always thinking, well, would it be crazy if I did that? Yes, it would be crazy. But what's the worst case that could happen? The worst case, I'm going to learn a ton of stuff and have a crazy life doing it. Well, this is where you can actually make a difference. That's why I'm so glad that Elena is organizing this, and I'm so glad that you are all here, and that today and through these 10 days, but most importantly through the rest of your life and your careers, you're going to start looking at all these challenges and thinking, how can I make a difference on that? Thanks for your attention, and good luck. Sorry I was longer than...